Buongiorno, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Calcio Culture. This is Vos, joined today by my co-host, Logs. First time, it's just the two of us. Little flashback to our Miami days when we were roommates down in the southern tip of the United States. How are we doing?
Running South Beach, back to the couch days. This is where it all started. I'm excited for this episode.
This is where it all started, 2 a.m., coming back, being on the couch, talking footy, talking calcio. Everybody has the origin story, that these fours. But as we discussed in the last episode, guys, we are officially in the international break. So we're not going to be doing any match previews today. Instead, we're going to be taking a look at the Italy squad that was called up and our outlooks for this Nations League campaign, followed by a special news segment from Logs that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in. But as always, Logs is kicking it off with quick shouts.
Quick shouts. Somebody should hire me to do some kit designs because I've got an eye for this shit. I'm always watching, looking for the newest one that's come out. And we're going back to La Liga. For some reason, I can't stop talking about La Liga. But here we are. Barcelona came out with one of the cleanest kits of the season, a pure black with a couple of details, red and blue stripes down the side, a nice badge in the middle, the Spotify brand looking nice. They did a good job here. I don't know where they got the funds to design this one, but certainly came out hot on it. I'm excited to see this one on the pitch after the break here. They should look pretty good in these All Blacks.
Yeah, these are ridiculous. I don't know where they found a guy to make these for them. They are such a dumpster fire right now, but at least they got good kits. Lamine Yamal red kit is going to be a very good kit going forward.
No, I mean, I can't say anything better about these kits, but what I do want to say to all the teams out there, sometimes simplicity wins out. You don't always need a flashy kit. It can look real busy. Exhibit A, Inter. I don't know why they got the mismatch going on. I'm not a fan there. There's been some kits over the years where it's just too much going on. I think the only team that's ever done it successfully where it's had a lot of detail is Leipzig. They've always had some clean, nice detailed kits over the years. So shouts to them. But again, keep it clean, keep it consistent. Sometimes classic is the way to go. And Barca did it well. Getting back on my PJ, we're taking it to where it all started. The origins in Miami, Inter Miami, MLS sweethearts have officially announced the stadium is going to be ready, the Freedom Park 2026, just in time for the World Cup for them not to play there. Don't know why they didn't negotiate this or figure out that they needed a big enough stadium to host a game there, but it looks magnificent. It looks like a bit of a smaller version of the LA stadium where the Rams and the Chargers play for all of those football fans. And shouts to the NFL starts tomorrow, but in any case, this Freedom Park is going to look sick. I'm excited that I'll be first in line. My guy from Inter Miami has already emailed me 14 times, all of which have gone unanswered. And he's telling me that as long as I renew this season, I'll be first in line for the new stadium. Whether he likes it or not, I'm just going to let it roll. They're going to renew my same seats. That is row 10, section 126 for if anybody wants to go to a Inter Miami game. I sell them all because I simply don't live there. It is sad that Messi is out of a contract before 2026. We'll see if he renews so that he officially plays at this stadium. But good job, Inter Miami. Way to find a nice spot for it. Way to take out that old shitty golf course and put up a beautiful, beautiful mall complex. Excited to see how that turns out.
Well, I bet what happened was they purposely are getting a World Cup game there because it's like, oh, brand new stadium. Look how nice it is. And they saw what happened at Hard Rock during the Copa America and then want a stadium that's not getting destroyed as soon as they open the gates. So good there. I still don't like anything the MLS is doing. So I'm going to continue to say these are dumb stadiums and bad investments, but I could be wrong.
We'll see. But the only problem with Hard Rock is there's an official roadmap of how to get in there with no tickets. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many rats make it in for the games that are down there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I hated that happened. But some actual footy news. Balon d'Or shortlist came out today. pretty
Big
secure
list.
list. Pretty overall, we say good list, I think was the consensus kind of agreed upon. There's clearly a group that has a chance at winning, and then everybody else pat on the back kind of guys. We do want to particularly pull out Lautaro Martinez, Ademola Lookman, and Hakan Çalhanoğlu as our Calcio, our Serie A representatives on that list. So shout out them. There's also a couple guys here, Logs, and we had a 30-man shortlist here, so we're not going to take you through it all. But there was a couple guys we had that we pulled out that said maybe don't deserve to be on here.
Not sure why they were included. You know, again, pat on the back for a good season, but even still, not sure why they're top 30 in the world for here. But you look at the list, Emi Martinez of Villa in Argentina, nothing special. I know our Villa, and again, from a Villa fan, we finished fourth. I'm not entirely sure that a lot of that was due to Emi's efforts. Ollie Watkins had a breakout season. Moussa Diaby had a great season. Leon Bailey had a return to form all last season. Emi Martinez was not anything special. Kind of just, I think that goes against the rules of this new Balon d'Or system, where they're specifically saying, do not take career statistics into account here. I think they did a little bit of that with Emi.
Legacy pick, an old legacy player.
A little bit of a legacy pick, and I guess they needed one goalie on there. I don't see another. So I guess they just tossed him in as the token goalie, especially being that he is good for Argentina. Although, again, international play shouldn't be emphasized as much anymore. So a little bit of a weird one there. Vos, your boy Danny Olmo makes the list, coming off a season for RB Leipzig that, again, I'm not sure there was anything notable.
Yeah, this one I don't agree with as much as I love Danny. As much as I love Danny, I don't know why he's on this list. Like, Leipzig weren't really anything special, and he didn't even start in the Euros. He came in kind of on the tail half, played well, but
Played really
not
well.
doing enough here for me to be on this list at all. And what I would have maybe liked to see in goal was the Dortmund goalie, Kobbie. They got to the Champions League final. That'd be an interesting one. They clearly wanted a goalie on here. But keeping it on the Dortmund train, one other guy that we thought that maybe a Dortmund player deserved to be on here for what they did, but we think they picked the wrong one.
Mats Hummels on this list, old bag, just signed for Roma. I mean, he wasn't anything notable besides the Champions League final, maybe the semifinal. I mean, obviously he played games that got him there, but for the entire season for a Dortmund team that ended up being fifth in Bundesliga, I don't think that this guy deserves to be on a list with the other names that are here that are certainly worthy of at least a top 20 shout. And obviously we'll get into this right now. Actual chances of getting the Ballon d'Or. And so we came together, we got a top 10 going for you. Rounding it out, 10 and 9, two phenomenal players out of Manchester City. Vos, who's sitting there?
Yeah, we had slight disagreements on who should be one, who should be two, but the unanimous consensus was Jude Bellingham and Vinny Jr. as number 1 and 2. My guess is that this is actually how it will play out. You kind of have to give it to a Madrid player after what happened this year. And it's going to be kind of preference, Jude versus Vinny. Obviously, two different players. Jude's the hot hand right now. So that's why I think they're going to edge it to him. It's kind of like the more popular play to just go, hey, let's let Jude win it over Vinny. We'll see. You thought it should be Vinny.
I do think it should be Vinny. I think that for a lot of the season, he was the one that was driving this offense. And certainly in the earlier stages of the Champions League, I think he was a little bit more prominent. Obviously, you see Jude in the headlines for bigger stage goals for some part. And I think a lot of that is the England tax. But Vinny, I think, was certainly more consistent over the season itself. So that's why I think he edges.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true. I think that is a good point.
Yeah, I mean, Jude was, I'm not going to say Jude was streaky. I don't think that's the word for it, but I certainly think that he came in spurts. Spurtability is what I'll call it. But Jude certainly should be top 3, if not top 2. And definitely as a shout. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins it. I won't be upset if he wins it. I definitely think it needs to go to a Real player. But Vinny, for his efforts throughout the season, especially coming into, this was his first season without Biggie Benz, no?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
First season without Biggie Benz, without Biggith. Had to really overcompensate for a lack of a 9, although Joselu had a great season coming off the bench, and I thought that was a weird buy, but he came in big spots. So I do think we do hand this one to Vinny. But Lautaro also deserves a shout for top 3. Obviously, top scorer in Serie A. Decent Champions League run. They came up a little bit short, I think, in terms of their own expectations, especially given the fact that they came in as runner-ups the season prior. But top scorer, player of the season in Serie A. They won the Scudetto. And I don't think that winning the Serie A should be discounted that much anymore.
Yeah, and I think in the context of Lautaro here, we have to talk about like 3, 4, 5, right? Because this is kind of like our top 2, and then I would say the second bracket. So we had at 3 Lautaro we agreed on. Then we had Phil Foden, and then we had Kylian Mbappé, which some people might be surprised we had that order. But when you look at it, Lautaro won the Scudetto, and that is a lot harder to win than like League and he was the leading goal scorer. He scored 24 goals, 33 games played. Like, that's an absolute haul. And beyond that, he was effective in the Copa America, whether or not that's supposed to be taken into account. I think it does. And he was really just the core piece of the team that won the Scudetto. So what we're going to put in there, also Serie A guys. So I have to do it.
And people are forgetting Serie A is the only league in the past 5 years to have at least 4 different winners. The Prem has always been Man City and Liverpool once. Bayern had always perennially won until Leverkusen this season. La Liga is always Barca or Real or a freaky Atleti run, and PSG has a stranglehold on Ligue 1. So to win the Scudetto, again, people need to recognize this. It's not an easy course.
5 Champions League spots. I'll keep saying it. And honestly, if they had done better in the Champions League, he would have had a legitimate shot at winning this. But
100%.
Because of the multiple trophies that Real Madrid did, that's the only reason that it has to be a Real Madrid player. On 4 and 5, I gave it to Foden over Mbappe, again, because of the whole Premier League, definitely better than Ligue 1. Player of the year in Premier League as not a striker is a very big deal. As like, because usually it's, you score the most goals. We saw with Haaland or like a Rodri, just dominant players. And then Mbappe, I have at 5. He scored 27 Ligue 1 goals, which isn't, obviously those are great numbers. But like when you compare that to Lautaro scoring 24 in Serie A, that's much more impressive, and it's a 3-goal difference. So I think Mbappe fell off a little bit for me, and he might leap Foden. I don't know, but I think 5 is probably a good spot for him.
I don't think he deserves any higher. Again, PSG had a shaky season. I don't think they were anything special. That it was, if not a little bit below the average as what they put out there, but Ligue 1's not the same caliber as the other 4 leagues, in my opinion. And so, in going back to Phil really quick, for him to win player of the season in the Prem when he's got that much talent around him, I know people would argue that, okay, he's got so much talent around him, that should make him better. But in this case, I think that there's a huge shadow for him to have to move out of in order to win that kind of accreditation. And for him to come out and have the season that he did, certainly deserved player of the season and certainly was City's best player, even given the fact that Haaland was up top.
100%. And to round out 6 through 10 here, I think the best way of doing this is just kind of rattle them off. What do you think? Yeah?
Hit him.
We got Danny Carvajal at 6. I think he deserves 6. He had some really important goals at the end of the year. He might be less flashy than some of these guys, but he played a lot of games, played 28 La Liga games, was a big deal in the Champions League, obviously big in the Euros. Fede Valverde, I would put in the same boat. Another great season out of him, but just a little less flashy than everybody else, but definitely deserves to make this list. Florian Wirtz at number 8. And the only reason I don't have him higher is because he did get injured and missed a couple games. But if he had played a couple more games, he would have a legitimate shout here at top 5, I think.
He's won 2 trophies and they went almost undefeated. They only lost in a trophy final. So there has to be a Leverkusen person.
I could jump. Even then, I think he might jump up. Looking at this list, I would maybe bump him up. It's really hard. He could be top 5.
I mean, he was 100% the key cog for the offense that Xabi Alonso was playing, and 100% deserves to be top 10 here, if not top 5.
Yeah, and then 9 and 10 to round us out, we have Erling Haaland and Rodri. Looking at this, I'd probably put Rodri above Haaland. Haaland didn't have the season he probably should have, but still, as who he is, he just mashes goals in.
I think the dig on Haaland here is the fact that he just didn't have the same season as the one prior. I mean, he had he had such a high watermark coming into this past season that anything less than that was going to be unimpressive from that standpoint. And so I think that definitely is the knock on him. I do want to apologize to Danny Carvajal. I had some choice words for him middle of the season in some conversations. And ever since then, he popped off, scoring big goals, playing great minutes. This man deserves all the flowers for the performances in the last, 25% of that run last year. And so with that does round out our top 10. But Vos, I do have a question. Ballon d'Or 1v2. Who are you putting above the other? A team that won the domestic league, but didn't have any flashy moments in Champions League, or a team that won the Champions League and came in maybe second or third in the domestic league? For a player on one of those teams.
For me,
is the same.
For me, that's really tough. That's the discussion. That's what's really tough about it, because I don't know. I think a lot of the time the voting takes the Champions League account into more account than the domestic leagues, which I don't personally agree with. But
they definitely do that. And the one thing is, I don't think we've seen in the past couple of years someone win with only one trophy.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's been a 2-trophy effort. But I do think they put a lot more emphasis on Champions League ball, but there's got to be some kind of conversation there about I guess that's when it comes down to individual performance, and that's what makes or breaks it. But I do think that's an interesting conversation to be had from a voting standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, if we had that situation, it'd be a little bit different. But I mean, when you win the league and you also win the Champions League, one of your players kind of has to be a shoo-in to win the Ballon d'Or.
In the fashion that they did. I mean, they ran away with La Liga. They looked phenomenal in Champions League. It's going to be Jude. It's going to be Vinny, and we'll have to wait to find out in October.
For sure. And that wraps up our Ballon d'Or little discussion here. Let us know what your top 10 is, where you kind of disagree with us, because I'd be very interested to hear that. But another short list that came out today, the Kopa Trophy, the Golden Boy. This is always an interesting one too, and I think it's actually pretty competitive this year. Usually, I think there's one clear-cut winner, and I had thought that initially. And now that I'm looking about this, I'm not exactly sure. But it's a top 10. We're just going to run you through the list and kind of make our predictions. Lamine Yamal from Barcelona, Kobbie Mainoo from Manchester United, Pau Cubarsí from Barcelona, Warren Zaire-Emery from PSG, Arda Güler, another Real Madrid guy, Alejandro Garnacho, another Man U guy, Karim Konate from Salzburg, João Neves from Benfica. I think he's still there. He might be on PSG now, actually.
I think he did go to PSG.
Yeah. Savinho, who's now on Manchester City, and Matthias Tell from Bayern Munich. What are your initial thoughts here? Some of these guys are just on here because they needed to fill out the list.
Yeah, Karim Konate, I don't know anything about. I'm sure he's a great youngster, but I don't know anything about him. Matthias Tell never got minutes for Bayern, really. And so, I mean, he's just also young and gets first team minutes. The real conversation here is who is in second, in my opinion. I know you don't think there's a clear cut, but Lamine Yamal is disgusting. It's tried and true. I know that a lot of that is off of his performance from the beginning of this season that's following the Euros, but he's just absolutely uber talented, and being now only 17, he might win this. Oh, actually, I think they changed it where you can't win it more than once.
I think you can only win it once.
Because I think that's why Gavi won last year, not Pedri. But in any case, if that wasn't the case, Lamine Yamal would win for the next 3 years. I think then after that, from my perspective, if Lamine Yamal wasn't on this list, it's a battle between Zaire-Emery and Garnacho. And the reason I don't say Kobbie Mainoo, the reason I don't say Kobbie Mainoo is because he really didn't come in until maybe halfway through the season for Man U.
24 starts for Man U. That is a 100 games for such a long time.
He went under the radar for me in the beginning of the season because I did not think that he was playing the first half of that season.
So let me jump in here because this is interesting, because I had originally, Lamine Yamal is definitely the sexy pick. And if anybody has, if he's the clear and obvious favorite, and then behind him, I would have had Pau Cubarsí and João Neves. We don't really need to discuss him overly because nobody really is going to see a ton of them this year. But number 2, I think Kobbie Mainoo has a legitimate shout after what's happened here. He is probably Manchester United's best player at this point, behind maybe Bruno Fernandes. And last year, I would say it was definitely Kobbie Mainoo. 24 starts for Man U in a very difficult position to play as well is pretty insane for a guy this young. Lamine Yamal, 5 goals, 5 assists, 22 starts, like good. The more I'm looking into this and the more I'm thinking about it, I want it to be Kobbie Mainoo, but the sexy pick is Lamine Yamal, and it's gonna be Lamine Yamal.
It's got to be Lamine Yamal. I mean, I think that they consider the Euros for this. They must.
I don't know. It really,
They must. But I mean, I'm. This is no dig on Kobbie Mainoo. When I had seen Manchester United and when he was playing, he is one of the most noticeable holding midfielders I've ever seen. And he's not even. He's a holding midfielder, but he breaks through lines like no tomorrow with class. That guy is different gravy. And again, there's no dig on him. I just don't know if he came to prominence too late in the season. But I do think Garnacho has a shout here. I mean, that guy came in huge spots. Obviously, I think he had goal of the season in the Prem with the bike.
yeah. But if you're gonna make
That's not a measurement of this trophy. I'm not going to come out and say just because he biked one, he's going to win.
yeah, but he wasn't better than Kobbie Mainoo. You had to be better than the player on your team to get this trophy. Like, come on. Which is the same problem with Pau Cubarsí, who was a revelation in the Barcelona back line, but Lamine Yamal has overshadowed him.
Right. Big shadow. Lamine Yamal, big shadow. And then I'll just move on from this Garnacho Mainoo with the shenanigans because, again, I'm not trying to hate on Mainoo. Warren Zaire-Emery, huge minutes for PSG. Good player, huge minutes. And that's where we'll leave it. I'll be surprised if Lamine doesn't come away with this, but we'll see. I think it's a little bit more of a fun one than the Balon d'Or.
Yeah, for sure. But that wraps up our trophy, our quick shout section. Sorry, went a little long today. Balon d'Or is always a very contentious topic. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to be talking Azzurri. Back from the break to get into the veal Milanese, the meat of this episode. We're talking Azzurri, obviously in an international break. Coming into the weekend, we have Italy in action against France on Friday, which is going to be an interesting watch. And then against Israel on Monday. These games matter. It's Nations League. It's not just random friendlies. This is also coming off the back of a very, very disappointing Euros performance from Luciano Spalletti's Italy. So he's on the hot seat. I think a lot of players are on the hot seat. So I would be watching these games a little bit more intently than I usually do some international competitions that aren't the big tournaments. Spalletti has a lot to prove still. There was people calling for his head. They stuck with him. I think some of these players have a lot to prove now. And the first thing we're going to talk about here is Luciano Spalletti. Logs. What do you think his mentality is coming into this tournament? What do they need to achieve in the Nations League? And what does he need to show from a formation, a tactical standpoint that really lacked in the Euros?
These are certainly huge games for Spalletti, and I hope that he gets a little bit more creative than he did in the Euros. We obviously talked about this a ton. I don't think we published those episodes, but we certainly talked about them. Maybe we'll do a little flashback one day to our pre-published episode days, but I need to see a little bit more creativity out of him. I think that he was a little bit rigid with his player selection. I think that he went with guys that he was comfortable with, but didn't necessarily fit the best or were most in form. I think clearly the biggest one that we missed in the Euros was Buongiorno. And he certainly had a place in that team. So from my perspective, Spalletti definitely needs to fix up his tactics, be a little bit more creative, but show that he can be competitive in these big games. France is not going to just turn over, roll over like a dog and let Italy pet their belly. This is real games. This is real competitions. They play for the shirt just as much as Italy does. And so Spalletti needs to come out, get the boys riled up. I think that they've got a chip on their shoulder. Certainly they've had so much more time from an Azzurri standpoint off the field since the Euro departure. So big game against France. I don't think Israel is going to be as much of a game. I hope that they get some new fresh blood in the Israel game because I think that could be a nice intro for some of these guys. but play the fucking dogs against France and win that goddamn game.
Yeah, I mean, France as your first game following this Euros is definitely shitty. Like, that really sucks because in these games, you're going to kind of want to experiment, especially with how things went, with changing things up, getting new players. And that, from a Spalletti standpoint, you're on the hot seat. And if this doesn't go well over the next 3-4 months, you're 2 years out from the world. You're a year out from the World Cup 3 months from now, or a little bit more than that, because we're going to go 2026 summer. And if things are going poorly, I'm not sure they're going to stick with him.
Well, this is definitely the time to switch it up. You need you need some runway between now and the World Cup if you are going to make that switch up. So this really is, in my opinion, his final tryout.
And it's tough to say what he's going to do. Mods had talked about it a lot. Even Spalletti has said it, that the core of this team is really Inter. And yet he's not played an Inter style of play at any point. I would say this is the game to start doing that against France if you want to go to that 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 kind of ideology. We haven't seen it. That is one piece I'm really going to be watching in these games, is how we set up tactically, what the formation is, regardless of the player selection, because that's another piece that we thought he got wrong in the Euros a lot of the time. And now there's a lot of competition in this team, and you need to pick the right guys. There is a very big spotlight on Spalletti right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if this goes poorly in these next 2 games, if he is maybe shown the door. I think after these 2 games, that might be jumping the gun a little bit. But by 2025, they're going to know who the World Cup manager is going to be, and it might not be Spalletti.
Well, you talk about this in the opposite way with clubs, in that you shouldn't hire managers for the players. You need to hire for a formation and pick players for that formation to stick to a system. That completely changes internationally. You need to pick a formation and pick a system and be flexible to get the best players on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever saw that at the Euros for Italy. We never saw the best 11. And so here, I just want to see him put in some effort to get our best 11 on the pitch at the same time. They're going to gel. The reason I say that is that 90% of these guys play in Serie A. I know that doesn't exactly correlate, but I mean, each league has a pretty consistent style of play, and coming from the same league is going to help us, is going to help Italy out a lot. And Spalletti just needs to recognize that there is 11 players that are above and beyond the rest, and he needs to get them on the pitch at the same time.
Yeah. And what is kind of a good thing from a Spalletti standpoint is he has said now in this, going into this international break, that he left some veteran players out because he says he already knows what he's going to get from them. They're planning for 2026. So we need to start bringing those guys through. What he actually said was, we need new blood. We need new hungry blood. If you can give a young guy an opportunity, he might turn into like the next big thing. So from like a forward looking perspective, that's correct. You are now thinking like an international manager. And my biggest issue with him during the Euros was his decision making and his tactics were thinking this is a club still, and it's not. And some managers never figure that out. And we should be able to see now over the next couple months whether he is figuring this out. And that kind of brings us on to the team selection, which was another big part of the Euros, because he got a lot of selections wrong. He brought some of the wrong players we had thought. He took guys out at the wrong time. He brought guys in at the wrong time. But to just take you guys through the squad, and what we're going to do here is just go through the line and just go through some of the notable misses, we'll call them. So the guys that were left out, in the theme is a little bit veteran presence. Jorginho, Acerbi, Barella, who has a nose injury, so that's what that one is. Darmian, Gianluca Mancini, Federico Chiesa. That one is partially because he's learning how to play at Liverpool, so they kind of didn't want him to leave. And then Brian Cristante. My big notable misses, I'm fine, no Jorginho, no Acerbi. I'm a little bit surprised with no Cristante, though. That's the only guy I would say. And Mancini, when we get to the center back group, I'll explain why. But if you look at this team, you don't really have like a destroyer midfielder. And I always like to have one in the holster just in case. And I thought Brian actually played well. in the last couple games. He played well against Juve. So I don't know. I don't know what that one is.
That might be one of the ones that you mentioned where he's like, I know what I'm going to get out of
Yeah,
Brian.
that's true. That's true.
I mean, he's not a bag. He's not a dust, but he's an older guy. He's been around and you kind of know what you're going to get out of him. So I agree. I think that's the only one, especially given the fact that Chiesa just had, I mean, he's going through an emotional, absolute disaster moving to Liverpool. I know on the surface, he and his wife are ecstatic, but that's a really big move, especially for a guy who came up through the system in Italy. So no qualms from me, except, maybe take Cristante, maybe don't. I think, again, this is the time to be creative and to experiment a little. So I'm fine with leaving him behind.
Yeah, and I think the Darmian and Cherry ones are kind of, you guys aren't going to be playing in 2026, so we're phasing.
They're going to be dead. They're going to be 6. They're going to be 6 feet in the ground. They're so old.
Yeah, and I think that the Mancini one is, we know what we're going to get from you if we ever play you, but Spalletti is never going to play him. Is kind of my takeaway.
By 2026, Mancini won't even be sniffing the grass on the pitch for the World Cup.
All right. Well, to get into the players that were called up, starting in the goalkeeping department, no drama here. It's Donnarumma's the best. He's coming. Vicario from Tottenham Hotspur, probably the unanimous second best. And then number 3, Alex Meret. We need a third goalie. I know Meret from my days at Napoli. So that's why I think Di Gregorio was left off. Meret has looked very good, I have to say. He's played very well in every game, but Di Gregorio is definitely better than him. I would have liked to see Di Gregorio be on the team over Meret, but this is I want to hang out with this guy at practice, and I know what he's going to do more than anything for Spalletti, in my opinion. But overall, no drama. It doesn't matter because that guy isn't going to play.
It doesn't matter. He's not going to see the pitch. This guy's the bench manager. So maybe Meret is more of a team guy than Di Gregorio is. And that makes sense. Meret's been around. Di Gregorio hasn't. I think by 2026, that may change. But for all intents and purposes, John Luigi's going to be in the net between the pipes every single game, no matter how good Vicario plays for Tottenham.
Yeah, 100%. And we could just move on from here. Really nothing to talk about. Going into the center back group, a little more decision-making to be made from a Spalletti standpoint here, but the guys that he brought, Alessandro Bastoni, Alessandro Bongiorno, Riccardo Calafiori, Federico Gatti, Caleb Okoli from Leicester. He got his first call up. He is a center back, 6'3", and Gio Di Lorenzo, I'm going to put in the center back group for now. He could play a little bit of right back. I don't anticipate that, but we'll put him in there. The way I'm looking at this is, what is the best back 3? And then what is the best back 2? Because I would expect to see both of those in these next 2 games. And looking at it, I think it's a little bit difficult to choose what that pairing is.
I was just thinking about that. And I'm like, all right, back 3. All right. So Bastoni's definitely the best. He's in the lineup. Okay. Bongiorno's nasty. He's going to be in the lineup. Oh, wait. Calafiori's also nasty. He's going to be in the lineup. Wait. You can't have 3 left-footed center backs in a back 3. That's not going to work. Okay, Gatti. I'm a big Gatti fan, but I don't think he should be starting for Italy in any way, shape, or form. And then you're like, okay, it's Di Lorenzo, but you're not playing Di Lorenzo in a back 2 center back. So for me, I mean, do you just go back 4 and have Calafiori playing left back, especially if he's going to be playing left back for Arsenal until 2026? I mean, maybe I think that's the solution there. But then, and we'll talk about it in a second, you have unbelievable outside backs already. So this one's a tough one. We're definitely stacked, although I think that right center back position is something to be talked about.
Yeah, it is interesting because I have no idea. That's why it's interesting. It's really going to be dependent on what Spalletti wants to do. And part of our issue is we don't know yet. Like, if it's a back 3, this conversation has a little bit more direction. If it's a back 2, if they're playing a back 4, I would expect Bastoni in Gatti, I think, in Calafiori as the left back is my guess, because it's like taboo to play a left-footed center back as a right back or a right center back. But I would say the best pure center backs are Bastoni and Bongiorno. So that's why I don't know. And I think Gatti has been playing unbelievable at Juve. He's the captain now. So it would be harsh to not play Gatti, but I'm not sure he's going to play as a right center back, really. Like, I don't think that's his best spot in a back 3. You know what I mean? Like,
I just think by 2026, Buongiorno's certainly going to have to be in that conversation. And
Yeah.
we need to do our best and give our effort into getting that tabooness out of two left-footed center backs, because how many teams play two right-footed center
Yeah.
backs
That's the
just
truth.
out of need?
That's the
So at
truth.
the end of the day, I know that it seems like the teams are allergic to it, but it's no different.
Yeah. So we'll see. I would expect most of these guys to play at some point. The only guy this might be a hot take. I would like to see Gio Di Lorenzo phased out of this team.
Mhm. Mhm.
I I am assuming he is coming to be a potential right center back in a back three, but he's not ever going to play as your right back or your wing back really anymore. Maybe right back, I guess. But he is taking a stumble in how good he is, and it's happening before our eyes, and it's happening very quickly. I haven't watched a ton of Caleb Okoli, but I would expect him to make a debut over the next 4 days. I would be surprised if they didn't play him, given that we need kind of a right-footed guy. So this is an interesting one, and I think on Monday we'll probably talk about what actually occurred in the France game, and we'll have more insight into what Spalletti is trying to achieve, which
Mhm.
should help us in this discussion going forward.
100%. And the reason that Di Lorenzo isn't going to be your right back is because we have talent at the fullback position. And when I do say that, knowing that a lot of these guys are more wing back than outside back pures, but going through it, Raul Bellanova, newly minted Atalanta player, Andre Cambiaso, who's been playing as an attacking mid per se for Juve as of late, Federico DiMarco, obviously left wing back for Inter, and then a fan favorite, a pod favorite, Destiny Udogie of the Spurs, as another outside wing back. And so again, it goes back to what formation is Spalletti going to come out with, and how does he want to deploy these guys? Because you look at Bellanova, Cambiaso, Udogie, certainly at their best when they're on the attacking foot and they're allowed to get forward and they're allowed to join the attack. DeMarco, I think of those four, is the best at holding, although his talents are certainly best seen when he's able to cross the ball. So they certainly Spalletti needs to employ wing backs. I just don't know how he's going to do that, if he's going to play a pure back three or if he's going to have a holding midfielder drop and help out a back two.
Yeah, this group is also hard without knowing if it's a back four or a back three, right? Because if you're playing a back four, I don't think DeMarco starts, because we saw how exposed he got in the Euros playing like a conventional left back. And then number two, you're going to play Calafiori there over him if you're playing a back four. On the other side of the field, I I don't think he's going to do this, and I don't know why. But I would be starting Bellanova if it's a back four or a back three as your right wing back or your conventional right back. Again, I refer to him as kind of like a Denzel Dumfries-esque player where he's just going to get shit done out there. You don't need to worry about him fucking it up. He's just going to be solid. Whether that happens, I have no idea. Which gets to the Udogie conversation, which is where do you put him in this team? Because he's not really your best left wing back. He's definitely not your best left back. I would say his best route to the team is actually as a winger, which I think he does very well. It's just when you get to that point, is he our best winger? So he's a guy that's
Right.
going to come. If DeMarco gets hurt or really struggles like you did, I don't know. He could be really lacking confidence now. That's his route in. And I kind of just strike Cambiaso from this wingback group because I see him playing as more of a midfielder for me. But Cambiaso has to play. I just don't know where it is. If Spalletti doesn't play Cambiaso, it is big time alarm bells for me, because I genuinely think at this point he is a top 5 Italian player.
I mean, his performances for Juve thus far in the season have been absolutely phenomenal. The guy is crazy, crazy good. I don't know where this guy came out of, obviously Primavera, but phenomenal, phenomenal player, and is obviously thriving under Mota. But Udogie doesn't play.
It
I'm
sucks.
just gonna, I'm,
It's,
I'm just gonna say it. It sucks. I love him. He kind of fits in the Jeremy Frimpong role of, and we saw that kind of deployed for the Netherlands in the Euros, not so much for Leverkusen, but just a very attacking wingback and almost a pure winger at that point. Small in stature, high energy, very pointed, very threatening on the front third. But I'm not sure that his defending is that sound. He's had trouble with cards throughout his career. And I just don't see him fitting into here. Again, I think the best spot for him to get in would be a winger. And I know that you say that he might not be our best winger, but when we look down the list and when we get to it, we do look a little thin at that position.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk about it. But like as the left wing side, that's also our best winger, and Matthias Zaccagni, who is absolutely flying once again. Whether or not he's going to be here in 2 years is a different question. He's an older guy. Things could happen. He could start spiraling. And then I would say that's still Udogie's best way into the team, probably, other than being the 20 minutes left in the game. DeMarco is tired, like he always does. Get in there and hold the fort kind of thing.
I'm definitely not mad if Udogie's
No,
one
I'm
of my
not.
first
I
or
think
second
it'd be
subs
very
off the
good, yeah.
bench.
And he's playing in a Tottenham team where he's like a traditional left back, and that's a hard role to play in that team. So Udogie, I think I want him to play more. I just don't know where. I don't know where Udogie. Figure it out, please. But yeah, the wing backs, that's about it. I think Cambiasso could play there if he is playing as a wing back. He's not going to be playing as a conventional wing back. He's going to be doing a whole bunch of funky stuff.
He'll invert or whatever, so be it.
Yeah, and
But
also
again, it goes back to best 11.
yeah, best 11. Cambiasso's in there. I don't know if he's a wing back. I don't know if he's a midfielder. And I don't know if he's a winger. In my opinion, I would say play him at right wing, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But that brings us on to the midfield group here that Spalletti called up. First call up. New Atalanta player, pulled out from under the nose in Napoli. Marco Brescianini. He's had a terrific start to the season. Absolutely deserves a spot here. Nicola Fagioli, beans, baby, beans. Seems to be a Spalletti favorite at this point. One guy we didn't even talk about as a notable miss. I'll go through it after this. Davide Frattesi from Inter, Lorenzo Pellegrini from Roma, Samuel Ricci from Torino, who has also had a great start to the season on that Torino team, and Sandro Tonali, first call up in over a year. It's going to be interesting to see Beans and Tonali in the same room, knowing what happened.
Thank God that Tonali is in the Prem, because if you ever saw him on the pitch in Serie A, that guy is toast after being such a fucking rat.
And the thing that I did want to mention that I left out of the notable misses, and while I was talking about it, jog my memory, no Locatelli.
Locatelli might have said no.
I don't know what happened. I didn't see anything.
I don't know either. This is not official news, but I could see him being like, no, please don't take me out of the training ground under Malta. I finally just started getting quality minutes and I'm playing really well. Let me just, you know what I'm going to do. Let me just keep gelling with the new system that I'm starting to learn.
I don't know, but he absolutely deserves to be in this team. He's been playing very well, probably better than Fajol. But
you just said it. Beans is Spalletti, one of Spalletti's favorites. I mean, Spalletti took him after playing like 3 regular games for Juve coming off of that suspension and didn't take Locatelli last time.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not surprised that he was left out if he was, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was asked and he said no.
Yeah, fair. The other guy that I'm a little bit surprised that he got the call up, given his new blood kind of talking point. And this guy has also been very, very bad, is Lorenzo Pellegrini. But Spalletti is also a big Pellegrini guy, so he's just going to keep rolling Pellegrini. But for me, Pellegrini doesn't deserve a spot in this team as of right now. He's been abysmal at Roma, and Locatelli absolutely deserves a spot. I guess the counter argument is you need another attacking kind of midfielder other than Brescianini. So I don't know.
I don't see a world where you leave Pellegrini off this team. I know how bad he's been, but it's been 3 games. That's certainly not a huge drought, but it's definitely something to keep watch on. And maybe Spalletti's like, okay, he's been bad for Daniele, but I want to see it firsthand. I'm taking him. I want to see if this poor performance, this poor form that he's in, that started really in the Euros after the last 2 games in the Euros, that has now continued into these Roma games, if that's, for real or not. But I mean, Pellegrini's what, 25, 26? I know he's looking for new blood, but it's not like Pellegrini is in hospice care.
He's a core column of this team for sure.
100%. And one guy I want
28, by the way.
All right, 28's getting up there. He's just at the back end of what I would call the football player's prime. But one guy I do obviously want to see and see how he's integrated into this team is Sandro. He came back firing for Newcastle. The fans in Newcastle love that man. Happy to see him back. I can't wait to see him in the Azzurri colors. I do think that he's their best midfielder.
No, you don't.
When it's all said and done, after Barella,
Okay, there we go.
he's after Barella, he's their best midfielder. I think I'm biased, obviously. That disclaimer, I'm biased. Am I wrong to say that Sandro Tonali is more polished than Barella?
Oh my God, yes. Nicola Barella is eons better than Sandro Tonali. Are you kidding me?
I think he's better, but I think he's a little bit more. I think Tonali's more fluid. I've said that before, though. That's not the first time I'm coming out and saying this crazy take. I think he's a little bit more polished. I'm biased. I love Sandro Tonali. Sandro Tonali, if you're listening, please give me a follow. I've been trying to get your attention for years now. But I do want to see how he's integrated, and I think that he's a versatile player that Spalletti missed in the Euros.
Yeah, no, they definitely missed him, and they don't have another player like him. That's kind of what they wanted Ryan Cristante to do, but he doesn't run around.
Ryan Cristante cannot do what Tonali does.
That's my point. That's my point.
I know, but I just wanted to emphasize that point because that's crazy talk.
Yeah. Look, from like a pure 8 destroyer, Tonali's the best they have at that. Like Tonali's very good at running around, breaking shit up, being safe on the ball, moving it, and then contributes a little bit more offensively. From what I've seen from Spalletti, Pujol is going to be a very big part of this team. He was adamant that Jorginho was going to play, whether it was in a 2-man midfield or a 3-man midfield. And Beans is the closest guy to Jorginho that they have right now. So I think he's going to be playing a lot in terms of having somebody that can pace the game. I don't think anybody else here can do that. So that's why my guess is he's here. And I ultimately think this is a tryout for if they're in a 3-man midfield, the third midfielder to play alongside Barella and Beans is my guess. In a 2-man midfield, I don't really think you can play Tonali and Barella effectively because you don't really have anybody to pace the game. From a defensive standpoint, you're very solid. And from a counterattacking standpoint, yes, you're very solid. But from a possession, we're going to dominate the game. I don't have a lot of confidence in the two of them to figure that out.
I know you forget so quickly, but Tonali looked like Cruz the last season he played for AC.
Oh my God.
No, I'm not even kidding. Go look at the highlights, brother. Listen, he would drop in because Teo would move up and Tonali would drop in off the left side exactly as Cruz did and help out the center backs and pace the game. I'm not making that up. It's burned into my memory that he was doing that, and I know he can do that.
He was also playing besides Benacer, who's like a pure pacer.
But I'm saying Tonali was pacing. So I'm not going to disagree with you that Barella and Tonali may be a crazy combo, and they do need somebody to offset that. Maybe and Beans can certainly do that. I think Locatelli would even be a nice compliment to those two.
I agree. I think the Locatelli miss is really, really weird to me. It's not sitting well.
But again, I go back to best 11. Tonali needs to be on the pitch. Barella needs to be on the pitch. And then if Fajoli is Spalletti's golden boy, so be it. I'm not going to be mad about it. Fajoli's good. But they definitely, this is the deepest.
This or center. Yeah.
This or center back is their deepest position, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see the decisions that come out of these two games.
Yeah, and from a more attacking standpoint, further up the field, Brescianini coming in definitely gives competition to Pellegrini because they play in similar areas, and he's been electric at Atalanta. And this might be in a year or two, it might not be Pellegrini anymore, who's the guy that's definitely the lock. I don't know. Pellegrini needs to step it up. He was bad in the Euros too. So this is a guy that he's definitely going to play, I think, this weekend. I would be very surprised if he didn't start one of the 2 games. So that's one. And then on a knock-on effect, with all of these other guys coming back, Vertesi kind of on the outs for me. I don't really see him having a way into the team, especially they're bringing Richie, who's had a very good start to the season and kind of does similar stuff. similarly not the best at it. So I don't really see him playing a ton. But he's definitely he was a starter in the Euros, played a good amount. And now all of a sudden, he has a hard way into the team, especially if you bring Locatelli back into the mix at some point. And Barella's not even here.
Frattesi played his best game the first match against not Romania,
Albania. Just like
Albania.
The rest of the team, you mean?
Just like the rest of the team, and then obviously tailed off like the rest of the team. But I totally agree. This guy's in trouble. This guy's on the hot seat. He in the hot seat is the bench for him. The best midfield does not have Davide Frattesi in any of it. No combination whatsoever do I see Frattesi in it. And the tough part about it is the way that Inter's playing right now, it doesn't seem like he's going to get that many minutes to fully solidify himself as one of the best midfielders in Serie A. And so I think that's going to have a huge, huge implication for his playing time in the World Cup.
Yeah. Again, like I don't know what Spalletti is going to do, which even limits us in saying like, here's who's going to play. Here's even our best lineup, because we still haven't talked about where's Cambiasso going to play. And he definitely needs to play. And he's arguably a top 3 Italian midfielder from like a pure midfielder standpoint. So I don't know. We need Spalletti. Monday is going to be a very interesting conversation, I have to say.
100%. But one thing I will say is this is a good problem for Spalletti. Yes, I feel completely uneasy with not knowing at all what's going to happen, but he has immense amount of options. He just needs to get the right one, which is the worrying aspect, because we haven't seen him do that yet. Right, but I think everyone would agree he's a world-class coach. He's done it for a very long time. And so to have the talent level that he has going forward, which from what I'm looking at right now is I would say much better than what we had going to the Euros in terms of form, in terms of player selection.
That's true.
I think that this is a good problem for this man to have, but that he puts even more pressure on him because he's got less room for error, because there should be no fuck ups here.
Yeah. And it sucks that it's France, because that's a terrible first game again. But to move on to the forward group, and I would more so throw Pellegrini even here. I think that's probably, in a perfect scenario, you get him in this group. To take you through the other attackers, Moise Kean, now in Fiorentina, who's been flying to start this year. Giacomo Raspadori from Napoli has not been flying to start this year. Matteo Retegui from Atalanta, rocket ship to start the year. And one of my favorites, Matthias Zaccagni from Lazio, another good start to another season. For me, it's very obvious that Retegui is going to be the starter. And at this point, I think he looks better than Scamacca has ever looked already on his couple games at Atalanta. He looks a way more complete player than Scamacca ever was. And I think the argument for Scamacca, Retegui was Scamacca's this ruthless finisher. And now Retegui's doing that.
I mean, Scamacca's missed his window. It's unfortunate, but with the injury this season, and especially the fact that Atalanta immediately went and got his biggest competition from an internationals perspective, I mean, he's done. He's cooked. I'll see you later, Scamacca. You ruined your career by leaving Serie A the first time. It's not your fault to tear your ACL, but unfortunately, it's a horrible position for you. I don't see him coming back from it. Retegui is, if he continues this form, obviously, again, we're talking 3 games in, but absolute rocket ship to the top. You had a great shout, Vos, saying that this guy was your sleeper for Golden Boot in Serie A. It's obviously coming to fruition very slowly in front of our eyes. But between Scamacca and the reports of Zaniolo being such a bust under Gasperini, there needs to be a huge overhaul at the front line for the Azzurri. And Retegui's certainly leading it. Well, who's going to come off the left and the right? I have not a clue.
So this is the other problem. It could be a front 3, or it could be a 3-5-2 even. And that even changes what we're doing. I would like to see a 4-3-3. To get your best players on the field, it's a 4-3-3, I would say. And I think you need to play a front 3. If it's not a front 3, and this is unfortunate for Moise Kean, if it is a front 2, I don't think that Kean and Retegui complement each other very well.
No.
So I would see it being Raspadori playing up there with them, which I also don't like, which is why I don't want it to be a front two. We haven't really seen that, so I'd expect a three. And the pinnacle, the center point of the three is 100% going to be retained. Now, off the left, to your point, what is there's two guys here, right, that you would be arguing over?
Well, it's Zaccagni if he hasn't broken every bone in his body and he's not paper by then. It's Pellegrini if he comes back to form, although he's still not a true left winger. So that does come into play a little bit. And then maybe again, let's go back to Udogie. Does Udogie deserve a shout up here on pure left wing? I mean, I think so if we're looking so thin. And then off the right is an even bigger hole because when I'm looking at it right now, there is nobody that plays purely off the right. And the only guy that I would say if Politano's still there, that maybe was a miss.
You're missing a guy. You're missing a guy. He's on the list. We've already talked about him. This is where
Cambiaso can play there.
For me, it's Cambiaso 100% should be playing right wing. That's how you
and Chiesa. Don't forget Chiesa is eventually going to be back for the cup.
I mean, perfect world. Your front three is Chiesa, Retegui, Cambiaso for me, right?
Sure.
Without Chiesa here, it is an interesting conversation for sure. And we don't know if Chiesa is ever going to be back. Realistically, Chiesa might never be back. So we kind of have to think about that. I would say to get your best players on the field, Cambiaso plays right wing. I also happen to think he is, from a full standpoint, the best winger for Italy at this point, with that, assuming Chiesa stays whatever he is, right? I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think Spalletti has ever watched Cambiaso. I actually think that. That's what it looked like in the Euros.
I mean, he got what, like 15 minutes a game?
Yeah.
And I mean, well, now he certainly has to see it because if Juve keeps up this form, they're going to be top of the table all year long. And Cambiaso is going to be at the forefront of that. So if Spalletti even turns on his television once, he's going to know that he's playing well. I don't even know if Spalletti has a TV. The guy's like 89 years old. He's still listening to the radio. But I agree. I mean, that front, but that's a great front three.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you get Chiesa back, if you get Retegui still in this form that he's in, and you get Cambiaso being so creative off the right, forget Pellegrini. Who the fuck is Lorenzo Pellegrini?
Yeah. And he has the option of going back into the midfield for this weekend, though. Would you play if it's a three? I'm assuming it's going to be three. I have no fucking idea at this point. I really don't. Would you go Zaccagni or Pellegrini as off the left? Because I don't really picture it being anybody else if you're playing your best 11.
Based on form, it's Zaccagni, and I think you need to go off form because you need to be competitive this week. If it was going off of, let's see what you got, I would play Pellegrini and see if we can't get him out of this slump. But these are really big games, as we keep saying. So I think you play Zaccagni on form. You have Retegui in the middle. And then, I mean, it's not like Pellegrini can't play off the right. But then you talk about, then again, I don't think that Spalletti knows Cambiaso to play off the wing yet. So I don't think that happens. So I think that based on who Spalletti knows, Pellegrini may play off the right, especially because Raspadori, to my own demise, just isn't it.
No, he's not it, especially off a wing. You can't play him anywhere. That's the problem with Raspadori.
Well, his best position is left wing. I will say that.
And he's not the best for Italy.
And he's not the best for Napoli for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. For me, I think this is a very interesting problem because of if it's a 4-3-3, I think you play Zaccagni because Pellegrini then slots into the midfield or Brescianini. And if you're playing a 4-3-3, I think you need more of a traditional winger, especially with Calafiori being the left back, who isn't really going to do what a traditional left back does in terms of holding the width. If it's a 3-back and you have DeMarco out there, then I think Pellegrini is much more interesting off the left because he's going to occupy more that like half space, that left attacking midfielder kind of role. And then you have a chance maybe to get, Brescianini in there as like kind of these twin attacking midfielders in possession, which could be very scary for a lot of teams. And then you have obviously DeMarco then I would assume is holding your width, whipping in the cross. So Pellegrini doesn't even have to worry about that space anymore. So it's a good problem to have. And it's also good that you can play in different ways, but I would like to see Spalletti pick and get guys going, I do think he's going to start Pellegrini, because you need to solidify that Pellegrini is a guy, and you need to get him rolling with this team, because he is going to be important in the World Cup. Unless Brescianini becomes the best midfielder like that we've seen in a long time.
If he becomes KDB overnight, maybe.
Yeah, and we know everybody likes Pellegrini. Italians like Pellegrini. Spalletti likes Pellegrini. He is a core piece of this team. They're going to try to get him going. That's my prediction.
That's the other thing, though, is I know that you want new blood here, but too much change can be really bad. You're seeing it for AC Live. He's a cornerstone of this international squad. He's been around for a long time. He's the captain of the capital team. It's really, really hard to make a decision to keep him out of the lineup. And so I don't think Spalletti wants to face that burden right now.
Yeah, that's
and shouldn't.
And against France. Yeah.
That's where you're getting too cute, I think. And this is not the time for that.
Definitely. So, on Monday, guys, we're going to have a lot to talk about. We will have seen the France game. We will have seen the Israel game then.
We'll have seen the Israel game as well.
Yes, we'll be breaking down what did happen. That should be really interesting. We're also going to be doing a power ranks next week. So this is going to be a Monday episode for everybody tuning in. But that wraps up our preview of the Italy squad and what we're kind of expecting this weekend. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we have a short new segment from Logs.
Let's go.
We are back from the break to bring in a new little segment here that this is going to be like a over year-long play. We're going to be keeping tabs on this for a long time. Logs introduced our little friend group to this segment years ago, realistically, and now we're finally bringing it to the public. I'm really excited about it. A lot of people are going to hate Logs after hearing this. I certainly did a couple instances, but I'm going to hand it over to him. He's going to explain what this is, where it came from, and we're going to go from there. We're just winging it.
I've got butterflies. Ladies and gents, paisans around the globe, I am honored and privileged to introduce you to the list. Welcome, everybody, to the list. I'm so excited for this. Guys, the list came about, the genesis of the list was, again, about 3 years ago, where I had my own hot takes about individual players. Clearly was not on the same side of, I would say, anybody at the time. And I stuck to my guns to make sure that I would watch these guys and see exactly what their talent levels were. There are two brand names that started out as the original list.
Before you get to it, I want to explain this in very simple terms. These guys, everybody on this list are guys that are just accepted as good players. And Logs has taken it upon himself, the odd man out that says he's not too sure. And some of them I do agree with him on.
You just can never be too sure with these guys. That's why they've made the list. There's never been somebody who's been unwarranted on the list at the time of addition, but we have had one graduate. Declan Rice was an OG list. This was back in the days of West Ham. This was the season prior to his season of transfer. So he had he had a full season at West Ham on the list. He eventually graduated the list per his performances on Arsenal in his first season. We are very happy for him. He got his diploma last season. Looked great walking across the stage.
I have to say, this was a bad intro, because Declan Rice, you were the only human on the earth that thought he belonged on a list of guys that are maybe not good. So I will say that.
I was wrong. The list has graduates for a reason.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm not here to have them graduate. I'm here to bring light to the situation. And one man who's still on the list from the very beginning and is making a case for graduation, but certainly is not there yet, would need a full season under his belt at the form that he's in, is Manuel Locatelli. Manuel Locatelli was bought by Juve from Sassuolo, and I just didn't see it. I didn't think he was that great. I didn't think that he had the talent levels of other midfielders at the time in Italy. He definitely took a step back last season, and the list was shining. It was a bright star on the list. he's trying to get off. He's working his way and he's working real hard. He does not want to be in the list anymore, but he certainly is. I've been watching him very closely. Again, not a great season for him last year. I think Mota might bring him to graduation, but certainly one to watch.
This is a good one, because if there was a year where he graduates from the list, it's this year. And if he doesn't graduate, I think what happens? You're bad. Is that what that means?
You are officially bad, and you get you actually never get kicked off the list. You just get a tombstone.
Yeah,
you get a tombstone. I mean, in the graveyard of the list.
In all seriousness, this is a make or break season for Locatelli. This is it. You're now being given the opportunity, and he's done well. And it's on him to keep that form. If not, there are guys waiting to come in, especially on this Juve team.
I was just going to say, he's got his work cut out for him, because they have elite players that they brought in and that they're bringing up. So, Manuel Locatelli, you are the captain of the list. Congratulations. We'll see how you do in the season. Another name on the list that I don't think any Paisans are surprised by, although again, I feel as though from our interactions on the socials that I am alone in this take. Another Italian, another Serie A player, Gianluca Mancini, is on the list. I do not like him. I don't think he's very good. I've said it before. I've been attacked. I've been berated for my take here, but he's on the list for a reason. And I think, again, a big season for him to see if I'm right, if the list is right, or if the masses are. But I'm watching. I don't think he's that good. That's why he has made the list.
Fair. We've talked about him enough. I have no comments.
Another name. Another name that made the list a year ago. He's been teetering on a positive note, but again, not enough of a pattern to make it off. Certainly not even close to graduation. Charles Tiketelare, a past AC Milan player, now on Atalanta, seems to be rejuvenated and new under Gasperini. He's on the list. I don't think that he's ever going to come to fruition of a $40 million price tag that AC paid for him. I think he's got the intangibles. He's tall, he's lanky, he's decent on the ball. I just don't know if he has the mental game to be a great player. And so that's what I want everyone to watch. I want people to see that this guy is soft in the head. If he hits any type of pushback or any drought, I think he sticks in it. I think the first trough that he gets this season, he's going to have to hit the bench. And I'm not sure that he recovers. So CDK.
For me, I think this is a good guy to have on the list, but off of the back of last season, in the beginning of this season, I would say he is leaning towards graduation more than anything else. I thought he's been very good to start this year.
Again, the addition date is really important here. This was before his first Atalanta season. So again, once you hit the list.
This is another one. This year determines whether or not you're graduating. Yeah.
Right. That's really the perfect situation on the list is a do or die season for you. This is one of those for CDK. We'll see. Again, I'm on the side that he probably won't make it through, but he's on a trajectory of looking like a decent Serie A player going forward. So again, another spotlight there.
This last one I really like. We'll call him. This is quote unquote Serie A. We're gonna say it's still Serie A, but this is a good one.
Well, it was really derived from the Serie A, and I'll almost give this to Mats for adding him to the list. Matthias de Ligt, brought into Juve from Ajax, abysmal. Look, I mean, I can't tell you how many game weeks Mats would come back and be like, "Why the fuck is this guy playing for my team?" I thought it was actually a good move for him to go to Bayern. Clearly not. Clearly couldn't get it done. There was a lot of I wouldn't even say there was a ton of competition. They just brought in a couple guys that just ended up being better at Bayern, and now has a fresh start at Man U. Another do or die season for this guy. He's coming in under the coach that got him to the spotlight. Can he come back to form is the huge question. Can he live up to 3 ginormous price tags over the years? It remains to be seen. That's why, Matthias de Ligt, you are on the list.
I agree with this one fully. I was super hot on him when he left Ajax. When he went to Juve, I was pretty disappointed. I thought he was going to fall with Frankie de Jong to Barcelona, and I wish he had, because I think this would be a very different conversation if that had happened. Juve as a whole, I don't think does a great job developing players, especially when you compare them to like Bayern Munich, because they're kind of in the same realm, I would say. So I didn't like that one. And yeah, the more you watch him, the worse he kind of gets when you focus on him solely. His first game at Man U, he made some very bad decisions in terms of when he went up and play versus staying back. And I think he's going to fail at Man U. That's a very hard club, especially right now, to be like, my career is spiraling out of control. Let me go to Man U to fix it. That's a good one. That's one we're going to keep tabs on for sure. And then you had a couple of just other notable mentions here before we wrap.
Notable mentions, not Serie A related, but certainly on the list. Mikel Oyarzabal. I hate this guy. I don't know what the hype is around him. I don't know why he's even included in the Spain national team. I know he plays in La Liga and he's decently okay. Overrated. Guy sucks. I want to see his name solidified on the list and then forgotten about. I almost want to just make him a tombstone and then crack it and just do away with it. I don't want to hear his name ever again. Another name on the list, we're going to the Prem, Javi Bonds. Javi Bonds is on the list. Now, Javi Bonds was a good player for Leicester. Streaky, not consistent, very low level of performances on a consistent basis. Bought by Newcastle, is now a backup to Aaron Gordon. Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon. Sorry. I don't know. Who is Aaron Gordon?
I think you meant Aaron Gordon, the NBA player.
Aaron Gordon is also an NBA player. But in any case, Anthony Gordon is now playing over him, who was actually pretty good. I will say that. I thought he was overhyped coming out of Everton for the price tag that he did, but he's clearly playing well. Javi Bonds is on the list.
This one is, he isn't good enough to be on the list. Like the other guys that are on here are much higher caliber level.
Well, Javi Bonds was added to the list about a year and a half ago, and he had been an honorable mention for team of the seasons at some point back then. So again, these are some legacy names. You just got to ride with them. Once you hit the list, I'm not going to take you off just to take you off, just because you become irrelevant. You're still on the list, and you're still going to be remembered for being shit.
Fair.
Now to the last name, and the only name that I added to the list in an effort to bring him to glory, to show everyone that he was good, is Cody Gakpo. Cody Gakpo's my boy. I have a hard-on for the Netherlands. He came in the spotlight after playing in the Eredivisie for PSV for the Netherlands. Is the best goal scorer for Holland as they see it for now and for the foreseeable future. And so I want people to watch Cody Gakpo for Pool and understand that this man is versatile, he's effective, and he should be in starting lineups for Pool. Although, remains to be seen. He's been shaky for Pool. Had a good end to the last season, but there's a lot of talent up there. They got Luis Diaz, who's hot right now. Luis Diaz is hot. They got Jota, who's been iffy because of injuries. Salah's not going anywhere. They bring in Chiesa. Darwin Nunez is still there. So we'll see. If he just needs to just only play for the Netherlands, because that's when he really shines. When he plays for Pool, it's
I do agree with, because I am the one guy I think in the world that doesn't like Cody Gakpo, and I don't like him in a way that he's like a bad player. He just isn't good enough to play for any of these super clubs like Liverpool. I always say, what is Cody Gakpo good at? There's one thing he's very, very good at, and I will always say it. And if you watch him play ever, he does it a lot. And that's all he does. He is extremely good at picking up the ball 10 yards into his team's side of the field and driving the ball to the top of the box. That is it. That is what he's good at. He is good at nothing else.
Paisans, I'm sure you can tell that we've had this conversation plenty of times. And my argument killer for this is Vos. Who else do you say you don't know what he's good at, or he's only good at one thing? You know the name. Say it.
The
say the name.
difference is they play different positions.
Say the name.
I said Lautaro Martinez. I wasn't the hottest on him for a while. I have since changed my mind on him.
All right. Lautaro Martinez is good. And for a while, no one knew what he was good at, but he's definitely good. Cody Gakpo, versatile, good on the ball, good at driving, scores goals, good player. Cody Gakpo.
That is the list as things stand. There might be some additions. There might be some graduates. There might be some tombstones. But we'll be checking in throughout the year. Thanks for delivering that to us, Logs. But we are done today, guys. Logs, where can everybody follow us?
Guys, you know the deal. Keep following, keep commenting, keep interacting. We love it. We're on all the socials, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube. And of course, you're listening to us live on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And so without Mott's today, Vos, take us away.
Paisanos, don't be a gagoots, and Forza Calcio Culture.